Suave.
I've been in my bag for a while, I'm invincible. Story of a young boss, grinding shit get critical. Calling on my bros one time, cause you special. I had some hoop dreams of right rounds for my mentor. Every target that I shoot is on point like a pencil. Different road, changed relationships, I'm so sorry. Came up from the trenches and I made it, I say hardly. Now
BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your sports betting this season. Everything from pro and college basketball to UFC, MMA, and more. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. With live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite leagues and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. Alrighty, guys, we are back with another episode of the What's in Your Bag podcast presented by BetOnline. My name is Andrew Robinson, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Tank Will. Tank, what up, baby?
What up, baby?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we introduce our guest, man, because we got a big-time guest today, man, somebody who I'm super excited to introduce to you guys. We got to get some business out the way first. As always, make sure you guys are streaming my guy, Pull Up Taste Music. That was him on the intro. It's going to be him again on the outro. One of the hottest up-and-coming artists out of the DMV. Make sure you guys are streaming his music, man. Definitely, my guy's up-and-coming, and definitely got an album on the way as well, man. So stay tuned for that. Also, make sure you guys are liking this podcast, subscribing to this podcast, giving us a 5-star rating. It goes a long way. If you're watching this on YouTube, stop what you're doing right now. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. I'm on y'all ass. Do it right now. You know what I'm saying? Subscribe. Make sure y'all give us a like, thumbs up. You know what I'm saying? We really appreciate it. Yeah, man, it goes a long way. But without ado, man, now we got all the business out the way. I definitely want to introduce to you guys our guest, man. This is somebody who, man, we've been trying to get this done for probably the last 2 or 3 months, man. But, when people got real emotion, you know what I'm saying, when they're doing great things, man, they're busy, you know what I'm saying? So we had to kind of, wait on greatness, man. This is somebody who's doing some amazing work in the fashion space, somebody who I think a lot of us can learn from, no matter if you're a hooper, no matter if you're a stylist, a fashion designer, obviously. Anybody who's a creative mind can learn from this guy. He's a good friend of mine. My guy, Mamadou Bah from Said Bone. Mamadou, man, what's up, my guy? Thanks for joining us.
So I'm glad to be here, actually. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah.
No doubt, man. I definitely got to give a shout out to my guy, Hami. If you guys watched Hami's episode, which I know you guys did, this was the man, the myth, the legend that Hami, recommended at the end of the show, man. So obviously, when somebody like that, gives you a recommendation, man, you got to follow through with it. And like I said, we're super honored to have you on the platform today. I think a lot of people are going to be able to learn a lot, man. So let's go ahead and get right into it, man. Obviously, like I said, before we get to the whole, Sit Bone and, the Mamadou, who you are today, the Fashion Week stuff, man, I want to kind of take it all the way back, to the beginning. Obviously, you were born in Guinea, West Africa, born and raised in Detroit. Talk to me about your upbringing, man. Talk to me about just, being born in Africa, moving to Detroit, like, what first inspired you to kind of get into fashion, and just talk to me about them early days, man.
I mean, so I was born in Guinea in 94, and I think like 4 years later in 98, my mom moved to Baltimore. She lived there for like 3 months with her 2 sisters. They were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get our like kids to America type situation, because they moved there on some refugee shit. So I stayed with my grandmother for like another 4 years. And in 2002, my mom like figured out all the paperwork to move me to Detroit. So she moved there with her 2 sisters. They opened up like a hair braiding salon. And honestly, it was kind of rough living, but you didn't really see that as a kid because you're just like, okay, I'm eating, I'm messing around with friends and like, going to school. So like, you don't see that. You're living in a 2-bedroom apartment with like 8 different people. Her and her sisters, my 2 cousins. So it's like, okay, I'm taking care of, she's doing what she has to do, but eventually as you get older, you're like, okay, the situation is not really proper, so you got to figure out how to give back to your mom, And in middle school, like I was very much so into fashion. I got into it by way of sneakers. Like shout out to my older cousin Mas, who's from Senegal. And he introduced me to Jordans and was like, okay, if you want to get fly and like stuff like that, you need to be wearing like Jordan 5s. And then I saw pictures of Jordan 6s, and that was like my favorite shoe of all time. So Jordan 6s and 18s is like what opened up the realm of fashion for me, you know? And also by way of music. So if you're listening to like Lupe Fiasco, Pharrell, Kanye West, Jay-Z, and like all those dudes, you're gonna learn about different brands and like go on Hypebeast, Complex, and Google all that stuff, you know? It's kind of like self-taught because I'm an only child. So I was literally learning from like people around me and my older cousin Moss, who introduced me to everything. Yeah.
So like just sort of building off of that, like, did you feel like there was sort of like any pressures for you? Because you were essentially like first generation, like in America. Like, did you feel like there were like a lot of those pressures when you were starting to grow up in Detroit, or like were you just sort of like navigating and then you just sort of realized like at some point like this is probably like a little heavier on me?
I mean, the only pressure I really realized was just, of course, like coming from an African household, like school is priority. Like you have to have your grades and you have to figure out, okay, what exactly do you want to do with this degree that you're going to get in college and like stuff like that. But as far as in the creative space, no one in my family is like really creative. You know, I just opened that lane up for myself. So I just treated that as like my outlet to kind of escape that reality that I was living, just to create my own universe to like help my family out type situation, you know? Yeah, so I didn't really see it as pressure. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna have fun with what I actually want to do with my life, you know?
Sure, for sure. I think you know, as three Black folks on this podcast, we can say this for sure. But even furthermore, I mean, African culture is something that if you look at the rest of the world, right? A bunch of people, you know, steal from African culture, you know, whether it's in the music, you know, culturally, foods, like fashion, like everything can be traced, you know, back to Africa.
Yeah.
For you, like, how do you think just, you know, being born in Africa and just, you know, spending the first 8 years of your life there has kind of played a role in who you become today?
I mean, so even like I said, when I first moved to America, I kind of didn't really realize the juxtapositions or differences that comes from being from Africa and Detroit. Because when you move here as a child, you're like, oh, everything's the same. Like you're seeing building structures that you saw back home, but it's really not. So when you go back there as like, let's say a high schooler, you're like, oh shit, okay, we have to shower with a bucket, or like we have to actually source our foods and like figure out how to by way of living, you know? Like here in America, I feel like we have it very, very good and we're very spoiled in a way because there are like people are struggling to make $5 to get a meal for the whole family. So it's like figuring out balance of like being humble and just kind to everyone because like not everyone has it easy in life, you know? Just, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, for sure, for sure.
No, I was just gonna say, like, do you feel like that was maybe like the biggest culture shock once you finally got into America? It was like, oh, this is probably like a little bit more, I guess, like a little bit more like easier to navigate in that sense, or did
Yeah.
you feel like that was the biggest shock sort of coming into here?
I mean, yeah, I feel like it is easier to navigate here because you have way more opportunity in America, you know? Like back home, it's either you're working in the fields or like literally just trying to figure out how to navigate life every day. But you don't really have a true passion of what you want to do because your life is already set. You know, like here you have different fields of like, okay, if you want to be in creative, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, like you actually have that landscape to actually make those dreams happen, you know? And that's why I'm taking full advantage of what I want to do with my life.
Thanks. So you mentioned kind of, you know, growing up and, you know, having your, I think, I can't remember if you said your cousin, I think that's
Yeah,
it.
Yep.
Yeah, the Jordan, seeing the, you know, the Sixers being favorite shoe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So my question more so is like, do you remember the first time where you were like, damn, like I want to be a designer? You know what I'm saying? Right. Not like kind of the fashion, oh, I like this fashion, but like you remember the first moment you were like, yo, like I
Yeah.
want to have my own brand and like make my own shit. Like, and talk to us about, you know, that moment, kind of what inspired that moment. And just that first thought of like, yo, I want to really go into this, you know, creative space and be, you know, be my own designer.
Okay, so there was like two phases of that, right? So in like sophomore year of high school was when I really like dived into the fashion space, but I was also playing basketball when I got to high school. So it's like basketball was priority before anything else, you know, because you're in gym class every day, you're playing after school, you're on the team and like running around with AU. So it's like, okay, I want to go to the NBA. But then as you get older and you go to college, you're like, oh shit, I'm actually not good enough to do that. So I'm going to fall back with my second option and get into design. So I've always been into it, but I really like dived into design when I really tore my ACL in 2016. I was like, okay, I have no other option. So I'm just going to fully commit to the aspect of design and just make it by way of competitive basketball in a way, you know?
Okay, I got you. And that was when you were in college.
Yeah. Yep. In 2016, okay. When I really like committed into like, okay, I'm a true designer now, and I'm just gonna figure out how to navigate this space.
Building off that, like when you say like, all right, you were in college and that's when you first decided to kind of be a designer. Was it something that were you already kind of, building your own stuff before that,
yeah.
or was it kind of like a So talk to us about kind of like I guess from a creative standpoint, what was the moment where you kind of flipped that switch to where you were like, all right, bet, like, yeah, like, I see what y'all got going on where it's like Jordan or where you weren't other brands. But from a creative perspective, kind of where you were like, all right, nah, like I got my own swag, I'm gonna throw on to it.
Yeah. So even like, what is it? I would go back to high school, right? And like 2012, 2011 time, my friend Nico, who's still one of my closest friends to this day, he started a brand called High Five, and he started it with like a couple other brands. I was like, oh shit, that's actually cool. I didn't know you can actually like create t-shirts, At one point, like, of course you love garments, but you never thought about, okay, how are they constructed? So I'm seeing him like go to the print shop and get it actually screen printed. I'm like, oh man, that's really, really tight. So after high school, started a brand called Reveal with like two other friends, James and Charles. And we put out maybe like 2 sweatshirts, but didn't really like know how to like scale a business. And of course we lived 2 different lives. Like I was living in Northern Michigan, they were still in Detroit. So we didn't really have time to like communicate like that. We were all students, trying to get these grades right. So we dropped the brand. And then after I got hurt, it really like put me in a dark state mentally because all I cared about was playing basketball. I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure out a different way to like execute that. So I started Sibon, but it wasn't really Sibon until I like scaled the universe that I wanted to like really create, So being in that dark state, it put me in like, okay, I want to get back to the positive aspects and like, how can I get back to the world type situation, So how can I inspire a next kid to not like go through what I'm going through and just like figure out how to navigate their space? So I created it as Sibon to like spark positive energy into the world, just to inspire that kid. Okay, you don't have to be an engineer to be cool. Like you don't have to be a lawyer. You can figure out different aspects to like uplift your life,
So I think that's a perfect segue. Like, so you talked about Sibon, obviously Sibon is French for it's good.
Yeah.
Launched that in 2018, right? If I remember correctly. Yep. So okay, so that's 2018, launched Sibon. And you kind of gave, a little bit of the backstory just now, but kind of going a little bit deeper into just like Sibon being born, right? Like talk to me about that process as far as like, one, obviously you just mentioned kind of, giving inspiration to the kid as far as, that the word is that. But talk to me a little bit just about, how the name came together, the brand came together, and then that first, like, all right, bet we're about to drop this merch under Sibon. Like talk to me about just, bringing that to life.
I mean, bringing that to life was more so like, okay, so even before I started the brand, I would always tell people like, yo, let me design for you. And they're like, where's your portfolio? And I didn't really have one. And so I just had a sketchbook that I would like just show around and be like, okay, it's cool, but it's like nothing serious. You didn't put anything out. And my good friend Julian always told me like, yo, if you have good ideas, you have to put it out into the world or else no one's ever going to see it. You can't just keep your work locked up, So started it that way, but it was kind of like a therapeutic thing because at one point I wasn't really one for therapy and like giving out my feelings, but this Sibon universe that we're creating is all about like positive energy, as I said. So we started off with like 2 screen printed t-shirts, didn't really know how to like scale that. So we designed for like a whole year straight. So all of 2017 was just cooking up like 200 designs and figuring out, okay, like what's going to be the one that's actually going to create a stamp for us to like keep this elevating, So we put out a black t-shirt and then a white t-shirt. We made 600 of them, gave out like 500 and saved 100 to keep to sell. And we only sold like 5 of them. But we launched it on my birthday because I treated that as like a rebirth of myself. leading into my new life of not playing basketball anymore and truly being a designer, you know? Yeah, so scaling it that way and just kept it pushing. Like we launched the shirts, didn't sell much. And then 2 weeks later, we had a pop-up that 500 people showed up to. So like, okay, we have energy to build off of and just kept it going that way, you know?
When it comes to like the brand, it's sort of like a two-part question, but like you spoke earlier on inspiration. This is just sort of going to go back to like Detroit, but when you started sort of create your brand, being someone who was from Detroit, like sort of like, was there any inspiration that you drew from the city? And like, how was that? Just because it's sort of a thing of like, we know Detroit is sort of like blue collar city. And then here you are like with the brand, like, were there any inspirations that you sort of drew from the city of Detroit? And then like, how did like sort of like your family and friends really perceive once you got into design and being someone who was from such a blue collar city?
I mean, the way I see Detroit is like, it's a hustling city, blue collar, as you said, and everyone, like you said, there's not really like many opportunities over there. So you have to like navigate and figure out how to get it on your own, you know? Like no one's just gonna hand you out, okay, here's $1 million, go do what you have to do. So that was my way of like navigating that space. And even like this past collection that we just put out, that was fully inspired by like Detroit and that storytelling. And we titled it like Industrial Dialogue, just because like it's the balance of coming from West Africa and my journey to Detroit, because I'm seeing my family work hard. I'm seeing myself work hard, and I want to see the younger kids work hard as well, just to like navigate their spaces and get through that. But yeah, there's bits of my personal life tied into it, but also Detroit and West African influences all throughout the brand.
That's what's up. I gotta spin the block on this real quick because I feel like you said something that was super surprising, I think super important, you know, for the viewers. And you know, you mentioned the first 100 shirts that you made, you only sold 5 of them. And you know, then you throw a pop-up shop and you got 500 people there, you know, 2 weeks later. And then you look at where you are now, right? And you have, you know, one of the hottest brands, you know, up and coming, you know, in the entire world. So it's kind of a two-part question. The first part of the question is, number one, when you first launched, you know, those 100 shirts and you only sold 5, like, was there ever when you like, damn, like 5 shirts, like, damn, like, are we doing something wrong? You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's the first part of the question. I'll ask that first, and then I'll ask the second one after. But what was that initial reaction like?
I was actually.
Hey, like just out of curiosity, like, did you notify people who bought those shirts? Was it like family and friends, or was it?
Like, I still remember them to this day. Like those 5 people, they actually showed love. But even to that standpoint, yes, I was very defeated. I was like, damn, like only 5 shirts, and we literally printed 600 of them. So I was thinking, okay, these 100, I'm gonna make my money back because I seeded promo, you know. But people don't really care about that. It's like you have to build your community aspect, and like at that time, I felt like the digital community wasn't really a thing. Like everyone just cared about like, okay, you throw a party or you throw a pop-up and bring people out type situation, you know?
Okay. So I think that's a perfect segue to the second part of that question was, what did you guys do in that 2 weeks to turn those 5 shirts into 500 people to actually come out to a pop-up? Like, you know what I'm saying? How did you kind of actually get the groundwork to kind of go out there and market the product to get 500 people to pop out and show love to your brand?
Okay, so like I knew I had a lot of people that rock with me, but I didn't know to what scale. So after that initial launch, so even before I launched, I will always like hit up my dude Luke at Bristol Studios, and he would just give me every advice, like, yo, go to this fabric shop, go to this screen printing place, like you need to work with them, you know? And I told him like, yo, bro, I only sold 5 shirts. Like, what can I do? It's like, oh shit, we got this space downtown that we're using and we have it for like 6 months. So if you want to do something there, just let me know, you know? So we did a collaboration. We did a t-shirt and a hoodie, scaled it out that way, and then took the rest of the 95 shirts that I still had remaining, put it in the space. He invited all his homies. I invited all my homies, and we blew it out like the whole night. Yeah.
That's lit.
That was kind of like our coming out party in a way. It's like, okay, Saban's here now. What are you gonna do with it? You know?
Right. You're speaking like a lot on like the t-shirts and the hoodies, but like I want to know about the tax. Like I want to know about the tactical pants and like how that took the brand to the next level. Because that's what every time I see the brand, like I'm thinking about the tack pants. Like, what did that really do for the brand? Do you feel like that's sort of what catapulted y'all into the
Yeah, no,
next
for sure. I mean, I've always, so that was the initial segue that I was going to, but I didn't want to like rush my process because I was putting out like feelers, like, okay, are they gonna rock with this screen printed t-shirt? Are they gonna rock with these hoodie designs, you know? But then after a while, like it kind of got boring to me because I'm actually like wanting to create full bodies of work. And that's why we're scaling full collections now. But even initially back then, we scaled those tactical pants, and I had that design cooked up for like a year, just never like put it out, you know, because I was, like I said, trying to put out fillers. So I sketched it up and showed it to like a couple of my friends. I was like, yo, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And one of them being was like, yo, make those. I need it right now. I was like, oh shit, okay, you actually want it. So cool. I went downtown, sourced all the fabrics, made it. Was like, okay, here, what do you think? And he ended up wearing it. A lot of people showed love after that. And that was like our piece that took us to the next level. Yeah. So we ran that pant for a cool like 2 years. And that financing from that supported everything else. So
do you like remember who was like the first like big name person who like really put the tats on? And like do you remember like the mailing address whenever you were like, oh shit?
oh,
Or
yeah.
was it just like you seen like a picture like on Instagram, or how was that?
No, so the first person was Shed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's been supporting the brand from the beginning. Like he put them on, and then eventually like that led to like other people, other players like starting to buy the product and just scale it that way, you know?
Bet. So like, dang, I feel like this last 2 weeks, man, me and my guy Tank me on a roll up because I feel like we'll be talking and I'll have questions and the next question, but the guest will just say something and they'll lead me right into my next question. You know what I'm saying? So the synergy is just perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm loving it. So one of the most important things when it comes to building a clothing brand is the marketing aspect. And like you said, man, getting your product on, you know, celebrities, athletes, or notable people who can kind of get people to see it and just, you know, get that right place, or, you know, things like, you know, like wearing the kind of setting off the brand. You know, I mentioned, you know, I know you talk about it on your Leafage podcast, but like, you know, how were you able to kind of cultivate a relationship to where it was like, all right, bet, bro, like you trying to wear these joints, and you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, like you said, he was showing love, but like, even beyond Shay, right? Like, how were you able to get your product to people in places to where it could be seen and where you can kind of get the ball rolling with the brand?
I mean, honestly, all those relationships just came about naturally. Like, so I worked at Round 2, and everyone would come in to buy sneakers, right? So basically, I was like clienteling. So whenever they needed like shoes or you couldn't have them there, then I would source for them. You get me? And most of them be like, yo, like, I know you don't want to work here forever. Like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, oh, I'm actually working on this brand right now, but just give me some time and I'll like show you later. So that's why I made those 500 shirts, you know, just so I can like, okay, I'm seeing how like Stussy and like Supreme and like all these other brands like got lit. They got lit off of seeding. And I'm learning that from Nike as well, because I did consulting work for Nike. And they showed me like the strategic and proper way to seed. Like, you, of course, you're not going to gift product to everyone because you're never going to make money that way. But it's just figuring out how to like organically make those relationships and not just be like, okay, I'm going to give you the shirt and never talk to you again, you know? So just figuring out how to scale it that way. And me being like a basketball guy, and like, I don't know, I just feel like right now basketball players have the best sense of fashion in a way, honestly, more than rappers to me personally. So that was just the community that I gravitated towards the most, just because I feel like we have that genuine relationship aspect, you know?
Right. I'm gonna toss it to Tank in a bit, but I want to ask a quick follow-up, man, just because I feel like even me sitting here, man, I'm learning so much, man, from somebody like yourself. And I feel like just listening to the way you speak about how you built the brand and the terminology you're using, you're talking about, you know, seeding and you're talking about dropping the fillers earlier and stuff like that, right? Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's clear that you're very, you know, well educated on like how to do this, you know, how to build your brand, and like you clearly took the right steps in order to, you know, get your brand to where it's at today. Like, number one, like, how were you able to, I guess, educate yourself on like, all right, bet, like this is what I got to do in order to build my brand? Number two, like, you know, what advice would you give to somebody who's watching this, like, on how they can kind of put themselves in a position to plant the right seeds and I guess seek out the knowledge in order to actually do this the right way, man, because it's more than just starting the brand, posting your clothes on IG
Yeah.
and, having a dope concept, man. There's a lot of people who have dope concepts and dope clothes,
Yeah.
dope ideas, but they don't have the knowledge behind it to actually do the right things to make it take off. So, for you, who's somebody who's clearly you're very well educated in this space, like what advice would you give to somebody in, trying to actually take those steps and lay the foundation the correct way?
I mean, my advice is just dive into it. Like, there's really no right way to get a brand off the ground. Like, you have to make mistakes as you go, and you're gonna figure out, okay, that didn't work. How can I pivot on that, and then figure out a different solution? Everything has to be solution based. But my way of it was like I said, I was doing consulting work for Nike and Jordan Brand. It was like I'm learning from them because I actually wanted to work at Nike before I even started the brand. So that was like my main mission, because my friend Julian, who I went to college with, he moved to Portland. It was like, okay, yo, I'm up here. I'm trying to figure out how to get a job at Nike. I'm like, oh shit, me too. So I would go to Nike and take informationals. I took like 100 informationals before I really realized, okay, I don't want to work in the corporate space anymore. You get me?
Yep.
So learning from them how they like have the rollout plans and how they work 2 years ahead, and how they have a marketing campaign for everything that they drop. Everything has storytelling to it. So storytelling is key to everything, You're not going to sell a product that has no meaning to it. So it's figuring out all those different attributes to like create your brand formula and then scale it that way, if that makes sense. So yeah, Nike taught me a lot, honestly.
You talked about right then, like just sort of storytelling, but like to sort of dive deeper into like your story more so, like with you being someone like who's from Guinea, what does it sort of feel like? And do you feel like there is a burden with you being one of the few people sort of leading this fashion space coming from like your ethnic background?
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like Guinea doesn't get the spotlight that it deserves. So I feel like me and Hami are like the forefronters. Like we talk about this all the time. We're trying to put as much spotlight on our country as possible. You get me? So the fact that he's in the NBA, I think he's one of the first Ghanaian basketball players to actually be in the NBA. And me being a designer, I'm leading that forefront. Like I'm the first designer from Guinea to get a Jordan Brand collaboration. So it's like scaling those to show those kids like, okay, it's actually possible to make your dreams like come to life,
Thanks. I think I remember. No, go ahead.
I'm not like go ahead. Because what I want to dive is like deeper on the Jordan Brand. So go ahead.
For sure. I remember being at school with Hami, bro, and like, yeah, bro, like I'm from Guinea. I'm like, dang, bro, like I feel like I'm from Maryland. You know what I'm saying? So like in Maryland, bro, it's a bunch of Nigerians, like a bunch of Nigerians. So like I know a bunch of people who, are Nigerian. I know a bunch of people who are even Cameroonian. You know what I'm saying? But you don't hear about too many folks that are from Guinea. So it's crazy that like, just kind of bringing it full circle and just, hearing, kind of just that from you, like hearing it from I guess, from your perspective as well, trying to really, put Guinea on the map and everything. I think y'all both definitely are doing y'all justice, man, to, shine a positive light on Guinea for sure, man. I think that, the more people who see you guys, moving and shaking in this space, I think it's just going to inspire a lot more people to kind of, get in their bag, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like that underdog mentality, of course, like you have Nigeria, you have Senegal, you have Cameroon, as you said, you have Sudan, all those countries, they have a major spotlight on their country because they've done so much over the years. Yeah. So it's like, of course, it's going to take a lot of time, but eventually I feel like Guinea can be like one of those prominent countries in Africa,
Thanks.
Just figuring out how to scale it.
All right, yeah, I'm itching to sort of get back to the full circle moment, like with you working with Nike back. So with you work with Nike, and then you like the full circle moment where you have designed the Jordans. It's a Jordan 35, right? The PEs.
Yep.
Like was that full circle moment like for you? And then just sort of like what was the inspiration going behind Enter the 35s? Because like there's a lot of different colors, there's a lot of different vibes to it, has a lot of pop to it. Like what was the big inspiration, especially like with your brand, because like your brand also does a lot of times like a lot of monochromatic stuff, and then that shoe was definitely sort of like on the flip side of that. So like what was the inspiration behind that, and then just overall how big was that moment for you?
I mean, that moment was huge, honestly. Like I'm forever grateful for that moment. But so even when I got approached for that project, it was by way of Instagram because I posted a basketball shoe and we were like running 5-on-5. And a Jordan Brand rep hit me up like, yo, it'd be crazy to see a Mamadou PE. I'm like, oh shit, what the hell? So he's like, yo, I'll email you next week. Just have your ideas ready. So I spent that whole week like thinking, okay, how are we gonna make this happen? How are we gonna do this? And my logic for everything is like only option, right? Like the only option is to make your dreams reality or like strive after what you're going for, you know? So I was like, okay, how can I bridge the gap and put Guinea on the map type shit by way of Jordan Brand, but still juxtapose it with like American storytelling, right? So that's why the colors were very poppy, because like doing all the research that I could to like dial in that sneaker, we realized that the Guinea flag was similar in color detail as far as like the LA flag, like it's green, yellow, and red. So we tied those two things together, and I was like, okay, looking at those similarities, Guinea is on west coast of Africa, LA is also on the west coast. They're prominent for their beaches, like everyone loves their beaches on both coasts. And I was like, okay, what's the deeper storytelling as far as the sand? Like sand ties into like a sand clock, or like, I forgot what those things are called. Is it a sand clock?
Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Like a sand dollar?
Yeah, like the things where you flip it and the sand goes to like actually
Hourglass.
hourglass. There we go. Yeah.
Sand clock.
So the hourglass situation, right? And that's telling the evolution of time, and like time is all you have. Time is what you need to actually get your ideas off. But it was telling those similarities of like playing with the sand to actually, I don't know if you noticed like this here. Can I go get the sneaker?
Of course. It's a real what's in your bag exclusive right here, man. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get in depth.
No, facts. This is crazy.
If y'all listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify right now, y'all may want to head on over to YouTube to get that visual. You know what I'm saying?
So like all this situation is like technically sand gradients, right? So this is that hourglass aspect. And actually this was supposed to be an hourglass filled with black sand, but we just didn't have enough time to actually make it happen. And on the court, we didn't want sand flying around everywhere. So let's say like Luca or someone is playing in the shoe, we don't want them getting hurt. So that was legal aspects that we couldn't do that. And the only option aspect here, like I told you, like only option is all we have. I actually hoop in my shoes, by the way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And this pink also is more so telling the storytelling of like, there's a pink lake in Senegal, and that's where most of my family lives now. So it's like giving a nod to that, because during the summertime, the lake is charged up by the sun. So over time, it goes from grayscale to a whole pink. Like
that's crazy,
you know. And then of course you have the cream elements here that ties into the beach, so it's like very beachy and like tonal earth aspects, you know. Yeah. And then we stamped it with the Sabon right there, so that's like the approval aspects.
That's hectic.
That's hard. That's hard.
No cap. That's hectic. Like
Yeah,
I feel like number one, like bro, to have a shoe, like a signature shoe, and you're not in the league is like some GOAT status, like super GOAT status, bro. So I think that's amazing. And then obviously, you know, you had Nickeil Alexander-Walker wear them dressed in the Garden. I'm gonna ask you about that in a second, but I want to kind of circle back, man, because I feel like when you talk, I just be having light bulbs go off. And you said that you had a Jordan rep kind of hit you up on Instagram. And I can remember earlier in the pod, you talked about, you know, you consulting for Jordan and Nike and stuff like that before. So was this person that hit you up, was it like based off a relationship that you had already had from like the consulting? Like, and like, so think about that, bro. I just want the audience to really like think about this for a second. Like,
so it didn't come out of nowhere.
Right. You know? Like, bro, you paid your dues, obviously, by consulting for Nike, consulting for Jordan. And it's like that relationship paid off and came full circle to where, you know, by you sticking to your grind, showing that, you know, okay, I have an actual brand that I'm building. I got something that's special, that's concrete. Somebody else saw value in that and thought like, yo, we're gonna give bro a shoe. And all that came based off a relationship that you had like from consulting. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that just goes to show how important relationships are, bro, to where you go from, you know, consulting for a business, and now you have your own shoe that's on the floor in Madison Square Garden, bro. Like, talk to me about that. Number one, I guess how that relationship was able to come full circle for you. And then number two, the process in actually getting that shoe to Nikhil for him to wear in the garden on the floor.
Yeah, so process was, like I said, I'm all about like genuine relationship, and I'm key on being kind to like everyone, because you never know like who someone is or who someone may be tied to, you know. Just treat everyone with respect and just go about your business, because okay, eventually like that kindness will pay off somehow, you know. And that was how this situation was. Like the guy that hit me up, I met him by way of like one of my closest friends who works for the LA team here. And he was like, okay, I actually fuck with this kid Mamadou, but I'm just gonna watch and see how he progresses over time. And 2 years later, he hit me up like, okay, now it's time to actually give you product, you know? And getting that shoe to Nikhil was more so like, so the allotment was technically supposed to come like 6 months before, but COVID delayed the factory or whatever. So by the time they actually came in, we were technically onto the 36. So we were trying to figure out, okay, how can we heat this up type situation? And so as soon as the allotment came in, Nikhil was like, yo, I'll play at MSG tomorrow. Like, can you get the shoe here? So I literally ripped open the boxes, found his size, and just sent it off FedEx, like next day delivery type shit. And it landed basically almost as he was getting ready to leave the hotel.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was insane. I think we paid like $400 to get that shoe over there.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. I just feel like listening to this is like, it's so crazy to me, bro. Like that, you know, like you said, man, 2 years later, bro's just watching you for 2 years. Like, let me see what bro on. You know what I'm saying? And based on the work that you put in into your brand, 2 years later, a connection was able to pay off, you know, and you were able to have your own, you know, shoe, bro, with Jordan. Like, as a designer, that's just so, I feel like that's so crazy to me, bro. Like,
it's more so surreal because like I got into design and fashion by way of Jordan brand. So the fact that it's like coming in that full circle now that I have my own Jordan, it's like I couldn't ask for anything more.
that's crazy. That's
Right.
crazy, man.
So like, just like on the sidebar, like based off of that, did you feel like it made it more special that it's only a PE, or do you sort of wish like, I wish retail would have got it?
Nah, I mean, just the friends and family aspect, right? You want to give it to the people that truly supported you from the beginning. So it's like, this is going to be the first stage of that. And then hopefully eventually like we can scale like retail, but we're in talks of that right now. But yeah, this first one, I wanted to keep it like as limited as possible, just to show appreciation to my close friends and family.
That's tough.
Do you say that's like, is that like the biggest like, damn, the brand has made it moment? Or do you still feel like it was another moment when you was like, nah, the brand has really gotten there?
I wouldn't say that's like the I made it moment, but that was the like, okay, we actually are gaining the respect that we deserve. We just have to like keep pushing it forward, you know?
So what was that I made it moment for the brand, would you say? That first, like, damn, like we here type shit.
Honestly, it was that first Fashion Week show in June that we just did.
Talk to us about that.
So that was like a 8-month process to like actually scale that show. So you come up with the storytelling, and then you design all the product, and then you like figure out, okay, which production team is going to actually help me like scale this full massive show, right? So RIP before Virgil passed away, I was talking to him. I'm like, yo, like eventually I want to move to Paris. Like I'm planning to do that in like 3 years. Like how can I make that happen? And I'm also planning to do a show in Paris this summer. Like, is there any way you can help me out? So he told me to hit up one of his guys who's worked on like all the Off-White shows, William Romeo. And they were like, oh shit, yeah, we actually like your work. We're down to like take on your project for this summer. So worked with them for the whole 6 months of like figuring out exactly how we wanted to scale the set design and like how the models are going to be walking in transition and like all that stuff, you know? So yeah, that was a long time process. But when we got there, we were there for like 2 weeks, and we were supposed to have fittings, do castings and all that stuff, but all the clothes didn't land till the day of the show. So we had only 7 hours to like prep that whole fashion show. Yeah, that was the most stressful time of my life.
I was about to say, what was that like? You working under pressure right there. Talk to us about that.
I mean, so just dealing with customs, like I guess I've never done this before, so we didn't have like the proper paperwork filled out. And since it's like samples, you can't put true value on the pieces, and we ended up putting true value on everything. So we had to like retract all that paperwork, send it out. So they held our product in the US for those 5 days. And after like the 4th day, we're like, yo, what's going on? Why are the clothes still not here? So our stylist friend was on the phone with UPS for like 4 days straight, 24 hours nonstop, trying to get connected to someone higher and higher just so they can actually release the product. And 24 hours before the show, they released the product. We had 21 boxes. Only 20 of them landed in France. One was still in Kentucky. So to release those 20 boxes, that one has to come too, because you can't like release an order that's not fully fulfilled, you know? And I was telling them like, yo, I don't care about that last box. Just give me the rest. Like, we're trying to make this happen, you know? And they were like, no, like if that's just not here, like you're not gonna do your show, blah, blah, blah. So it's legal customs or whatever. And at 10 in the morning, that last box came and we made it happen.
Jeez, bro. So talk to me about like, you know, showtime, right? So you said like this is kind of like your I made it moment. Like as a designer, bro, like you're in Paris, you put together this whole, you know, fashion show, you know, working with Virgil on that. Rest in peace to Virgil. What was that moment like actually as the show was unfolding, right? Like what emotions are going through your body, like, you know, how, and then after the show when you like, damn, bro, like I really just did Paris Fashion Week, like, you know, so talk to me about just that emotion that was going through, you know, your mind at that time.
I mean, it was a lot of emotions, but it was more so figuring out, okay, I went from selling 5 t-shirts to scaling full fashion week. So it was like a whirlwind of all that happening. And then all my friends being there, like some family members. So it was like a big time moment, but it was also like, okay, what's next? Because you can't be the brand that just does this one time and never comes back to fashion week again, you know? Right. So literally immediately after that, I was like, okay, now I know we have to start working on fall winter 23. Like we gotta start scaling it again, you know? Yeah, so it's like you have that 15 minutes of like adrenaline type situation, and then you gotta move on to the next thing.
You spoke on Fashion Week and like right then you just said like, oh, you don't want to be the one who never comes back to Fashion Week. You don't have that problem. Like you've been to Fashion Week a few times. Like, can you give us sort of like an idea of what it's like to go to that many fashion weeks? And do you have like one fashion week that stands out? Like, yeah, we killed that. Like, I can't wait to do this fashion week over again next year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so we've only scaled one show. The last time we only had a showroom just because everything was way too last minute to like scale a full proper show. But just looking at it from that standpoint, now I'm learning, okay, how to actually execute a showroom and get buyers in, like expanding like the retail market of things, right? But then we also have the luxury of, okay, we know exactly what to do, how to get product there on time, how to do the casting. So for the next summer one, we'll have everything truly dialed in so we won't have any problems. So just learning how to like navigate those spaces and figure out, okay, how can you have the least amount of problems but be most effective as possible, you know?
Right. I feel like you could tell you definitely hoop, man, because I feel like the response you gave when you were like, all right, you got that 15 minutes to celebrate and then you got to get back to it. It reminds me of what Hoopers say when they won the NBA chip. They're like, all right, man, we're going to celebrate. We're going to enjoy this parade. And then once the parade over, right back to the gym, working for next year. You know what I'm saying? So I could definitely see the parallels there, man. I wanted to ask you, though, and you kind of spoke on it just, you know, briefly just now, but I kind of want to give you the opportunity to expound upon it a little bit more. I mean, man, bro, when you look back at the fact that your first drop, you sold 5 shirts, right? Mm-hmm. Then you got guys like, you know, Shay wearing the tack pants. You got Nikhil wearing the Jordan PEs and MSG, right? You know, you got Paris Fashion Week. You know, you go on your page now, you see rappers. Gotta shout out, by the way, you gotta shout out Shy Glizzy, DMV Finest. I see them rocking the brand, you know what I'm saying? Glizzy gang, that's a DMV GOAT right there for sure. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you got Glizzy, you got Corday, French Montana is one of your stuff, right? Like, you just take a moment to sit back and reflect, right, on how far you've come. What comes to mind? You know, like, do you ever surprise yourself like, dang, yo? And again, like, you have so much farther to go. You still got, you know, like you mentioned, right? But when you look back and like, damn, bro, like, look how far we came. You know, like, do you ever just sit back to reflect on it, you know? And when you do, you know, what thoughts come to mind?
I mean, I literally think about that like every day. Like, it's more so like, okay, what would I be? So my thinking is like, okay, if I still lived in Detroit, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing fashion? That's one question I ask myself consistently, right? And then also coming back to that, it's like, damn, okay, I've garnered all these relationships. They actually are my close friends now. And okay, how did I even get here? You know, that's one thing I still don't understand. But like I said, it just goes back to like me being myself, being a good person, and just balancing that with good energy. Put out good energy, you're gonna get it back, you know? So even like Shy Glizzy, I was friends with him before I even launched the brand, and gave him a hoodie. It was like, oh shit, okay, I actually rock with this, but like whatever you do, I'm gonna support it, you know? So even like getting him into that campaign was like just a text away, like, yo, I need you to model this thing really quick. I'm doing a collab with one of my little bros. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm down, just let me know when. You know, so just having that luxury is like, yeah, couldn't have asked for more, honestly.
That's big love, yo. That's crazy, man. I think man, bro, I think like just for me, man, hearing your story is super inspiring, bro. And like I want to talk to you about this too, because I feel like I would be remiss, you know, if I didn't mention the fact that, like, you know, on this platform, right, you got 3 African Americans, right? And you talked about already, you know, being from Guinea, right? And, you know, you and Hamid putting Guinea on the map, you know, but even on like a more broad perspective, man, when you talk about ownership, right? When you talk about, you know, being a CEO, when you talk about, you know, being a creative director like yourself, right? There are not many people who look like us, you know, who have ownership of their own brand, who are designers, right? So for you, right, to be a Black man who has your own brand, who is navigating these spaces, right? Like, you know, what advice would you give to the next, you know, African American person, man, who has a dream, who's trying to, you know, break that, you know, that glass ceiling, man? Because at the end of the day, you know, if you look at, you know, high fashion, you look at the Louis, the Gucci's, all these brands, man, these are white people. You know what I'm saying? These aren't people who look like us, right? So, you know, for you to be a African American, you know, in a position of like, yo, well, actually, technically, you African. I don't even know if African American is the correct way to describe you, bro. You know what I'm saying? But like, just to be Black, like,
Yeah.
in the space of ownership, right? Like, how, you know, I guess what advice would you give to the next person that's trying to navigate that space? Because it's not easy to break through. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. You know, so can you just kind of speak to that a little bit?
I mean, my advice is just be patient. Like patience is key to everything. Like you don't want to rush your process and then skip a step that sets you back like 10 steps, you know? So like don't compare yourself to other brands because LV took like 100 years to get to their level, you know? So why shouldn't it take you like 20? And like you really grind it out, learn the whole process of everything, learn how to do your taxes, learn how to like actually get your accounting down and like just the full process of actually like how to run a business, you know? So yeah, I would say patience is like the biggest thing. Don't ever rush your process.
Today, currently, like in this space right now, like, you know, you've gotten to a point to where, all right, like you're actually, you know, working alongside a lot of these top tier brands. What's it like for you now, you know, like navigating that space as an African American or as a Black person who will say, like I mentioned, when you got all these other people who are, like I said, these top tier brands who are, you know, founded and ran by white people, like I feel like there's still, you know, I don't want to say racism, but there's still like barriers, right? When it comes to people trying to like, as somebody, you know, who, you know, is a minority in this country. At the end of the day, like, you know, what is your experience like now, you know, trying to navigate that space? Do you still find, you know, challenges in trying to get certain opportunities or trying to like, you know, I guess break through in some sense? Like, what is that space like now? Trying to navigate that.
I mean, the space is still pretty tough, honestly. But like I was even telling myself like end of last year and how we can like scale the brand, but it's just demanding your respect when it comes down to it, you know? Because we are the African American brand or like the African brand, as you would say. And they're not going to give you the same amount of respect as like, not to say it, but like a white person who's running his brand. They're going to uplift him and put him in certain publications just because he is the white man running a proper high fashion brand, you know? And I don't want to be boxed in that to like the second tier brand just because I'm African American. I want you to respect me for the work that I actually put out. You get me? So just yeah, to that standpoint of just demanding the proper respect that we deserve, so everyone is playing on an equal playing field. You know?
For sure.
We sort of like hinted at some other brands, but when we think about it, it's sort of like Virgil, and then we have like Telfar Clemens, and like we can even go like Dapper Dan. do we also put Mamadou in that same class? Like, do you feel like you go in that same category when we talk about fashion designers?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right now we're still working up towards that, but eventually I feel like we can be up there. Because even right now, I'm self-taught, so I didn't go to school for any of this. So I'm literally learning as I go. And of course, like we're competitive. We come from basketball nature, so you're going to practice every day until you get better, you know? So it's just treating it like that to where you do want to reach that pinnacle of like being a creative director at LV or like doing a Dapper Dance, doing with Gucci, and like, you know, just demanding your respect to that standpoint. And then also giving it back to like the next wave that's coming up, you know?
So do you sort of feel like when you look at like your Mount Rushmore of fashion designers, would you put yourself up there, or do you just feel like that's just way too much praise too early?
It's,
And if you feel like you're not up there, then who is up there?
mm, yeah, that's way too early because I haven't done enough to like really give myself that praise, you know? Like I'm a realist. I'm not gonna say, okay, I'm the best fashion designer of all time because I haven't learned enough yet, you know? But I mean, as far as Mount Rushmore aspect, you have to put Virgil up there. Who else? I will put Raph up there.
And let's break it down for folks who might not know Raph. Like for the folks who like who's Raph? Like break who is Raph?
So Raph is an amazing designer, white European dude, and I found out about him by way of like his stint at Dior that he had, and I remember he had like 8 weeks to design a full couture collection, and he scaled it like magnificently, you know. So Raph Simmons, if you don't know who that is, just do your research, figure it out that way.
Virgil, Raph Simmons. We got two more for the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, this is tough.
My boy is thinking deeply.
This is not tough.
I just gotta ask, if you go Ralph, do you also go Rick?
Nah, see, like that's too dark for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole different lane. Virgil. I'll put Sam in there, Samuel Ross from A Cold Wall.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I like his. So I'm about detail and like storytelling and all that stuff, and he has his detail and storytelling down to a fucking T. So put him up there.
We got one more.
And Hiroki from Visvon. So it's a Japanese brand.
What was it? Say one more time.
Hiroki from Visvon.
Okay. See, I'm not hip to them, so I gotta.
He just put me on.
Yeah, facts. So you said Hiroki?
Hiroki.
All right. See, I'm out here in Japan right now, so I'm like,
Go to
Tokyo. Drew about to go get the dupes.
That's dope. So we're gonna get into some quick hitters in a little bit, but I guess the last kind of question I have for you, kind of on a serious note, is when you look at Sebon, right? Like, so where do you see the brand going? If you look at like our end goal, right? You know, as a designer and creative director, if you could say, you know, this is where I want my brand to get to, right? What does that look like for Sebon?
I mean, it's creating a whole universe, right? So it's like you have the design aspect, and then we want to also like have the charity or like philanthropy arm of the brand. So even like creating schools back home in West Africa that ties into design or like anything creative. So they're not just learning, okay, you have to be a lawyer or a doctor or something to be successful, you know? You have a creative outlet to actually get those ideas off. And I don't know, it's just gonna tie into all fields like creative. So like you have the philanthropy arm. Eventually I want to turn it into a label because I love music. So tie that in, and yeah, just creating a whole system to where like kids can truly like learn how to run a business and expand upon their ideas. Yeah. So it's a lot of different things that we truly want to do.
That's dope. That's dope. All right, so I got a couple quick hitters for you, man. The first one I'm gonna ask you is, I'm sure you probably get this a lot, man, but give me your top 5 best dressed players in the league.
Top 5. Sheesh.
Top five.
Shea, Nikhil, Jordan Clarkson.
Bro, this is fast. That's 3 already.
That's already 3, yeah. So if you see, the last 2 is like the tough part. I like Josh Christopher.
Okay,
that's different.
Yeah, I like Josh Christopher.
He's swaggy though. He's swaggy. I like his style.
And it's just like the confidence that comes when they're wearing the product. You know, that ties into.
Right.
So that's 4.
Yep, 4. One more.
Bang, bang. 5. D'Angelo Russell.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. He's a unique swag. I can dig it. All right, so give me your favorite Black-owned brands that people maybe that you fuck with, or some brands you think people could check out, so we can show love to some some other Black creators in this space.
Okay, Crenshaw Skate Club, ran by my little twin Toby. Basically like a 20-year-old kid who goes to Stanford and still balancing a brand. Like, that's already genius in itself, But nice. He's very dope. Crenshaw Skate Club, Barriers New York is very tight.
Barriers is tough. The hoodies are crazy.
Mad insane. What else? Arrival, my boy from Detroit, Spencer, he's going crazy right now too. Well, I'll give you 2 more. She's not, well, it's not really a brand, but she's an artist. This chick called Rebecca. I can send you her information, but she creates like music related timeless art pieces. So she did this like Rockefeller chain that literally glows, and then she did the G-Unit piece that spins. It's like insane. So it's not fashion, but it's like art, I guess, that blends in. She's dope. And DH from Detroit, who does You Matter. His stuff is tight too.
Okay, that's tough.
Yeah.
Love it, man. So if y'all listen to this, make sure y'all tap in. I'm gonna go ahead and watch this back and write them names down so I can tap in and show love for sure. Give me 3 tips to somebody who maybe is trying to get more swaggy, but they don't really know where to start, and they might not have a crazy bag to spend on no crazy expensive clothes. So what's some tips to somebody who's trying to get their swag up?
Go to the thrift store. Of course, like figure out your direction and lane of what you like, but that's the cheapest way to like get fly and still be clean, But go into the thrift store. Don't look at other people as inspiration, just figure out what you truly like. Yeah, so more so like reading books or like watching movies, getting inspirations from that. Like my biggest inspiration is from 90s to like early 2000s. So like that's the era that I live in when it comes to like dressing up, I would say. And yeah, just be comfortable in your own skin. Like if you're not wearing the clothes with confidence, I always say like, don't let the clothes wear you, you wear the clothes.
Right.
I
love it. And I guess if you could look at, who are some of your favorite brands today, like, or if you had like some brands that kind of you look to, you just kind of said don't let others kind of inspire you, but like find what you like and stuff like that. But if you had to say like some brands that like you kind of drew inspiration from, or some of your favorite brands, like what would they be?
See, even then, like I don't try to look. I get most of my inspirations from like friends and like conversations that we're having, or like movies that I'm watching, books that I'm reading. So if you're looking at other brands, then you're gonna take their DNA and tie it into your situation, and it's gonna look like you're copying, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I look to like Off-White. I like how he created his universe and like how he told different stories with each collection. So if you want to pick that, then I like that brand. I love Stone Island just because the way they tie into their detailing, everything's like a science project to them. So Stone Island will be another one. And then if I had to pick one more, then I would say Reese Cooper too. Yeah, he's a dude from LA. And same thing, I just like how he like curated his universe for his brand. It's very like eco-friendly. He loves like the environment and like all that stuff. So it ties in very well.
All right, last quick hitter. This might be hard for you, you know what I'm saying? Because you're your own designer. So I'm sure you probably love everything that you put out, obviously. But if you were to pick your top 3 favorite Sebone pieces, what would they be?
Top 3 Sebone pieces. So actually, like next month, we're gonna be launching our Spring Summer 23 collection, but we have these like gradient pants. Probably the tan and green ones will be my favorite, and of course the brown tactical pants. The Lavenier sweater, so the one that Future was wearing. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I've seen it. That was tough.
That will be another one. You said 5?
However many you want to give us, man. However many you want to give us. I'm here for it all.
Oh, and then this varsity jacket that we just put out for fall winter 23. So it had like the welding man on the back, blue collar themed. Yeah, I like that one a lot just because a lot of detail went into that. And 5. Probably this next stuff that we're working on that no one has seen yet.
Yeah, okay,
that's gonna be a
plug right there. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for the drip, man. Cool, man. I'm gonna go ahead and toss the Tank. If you got any more questions for you before I get into my last one for you.
No, bro, it's all yours, yo. When he was going into the collection, I started going like, what else is in this collection? Like he got to drop. Like my mind started racing in that moment.
Yeah, facts. All right, that's a bet, man. So last question we always ask our guests, man. Who is one person that you think we should have on the What's in Your Bag podcast? But the catch is, whoever we have on, you got to help us get them on, man. You got to be in your point guard bag and throw assists, you know what I'm saying? So, and this is somebody who, like I said, it could be anybody. So, you know, who is that person?
Who is that person?
It could be in any space, whether it's, you know, fashion space, you know, designer, stylist. They could be obviously, you know, athlete, sports, photographer, like, you know, any type of creative, man. We're all for them.
My boy Julian Gaines. Jew working on projects. He's a visual artist who I told you about, who lives in Portland. He basically, I would say, opened the doors for me to get into that Nike bag and eventually expand into my brand. But as far as like someone that I trust the most with my ideas, it would be him. So I would love for you guys to talk to him.
Okay. That's a bet. That's a bet. We'll definitely be in contact for sure, trying to work on that behind the scenes, man. And like I said, man, I'm about to be in LA soon. So definitely looking forward to chopping it up, man, linking up, man. And I'm copping some Sebone drip for sure. You know what I'm saying? That's already done. That's already done for sure. And like I said, man, if you ever get that, matter of fact, not if, it's gonna happen. When the Sebone, you know, retail Jordan collab drops, man, I'm definitely gonna throw them on feet for sure. Out here in Japan, no cap. But nah, man, I just want to say this has been a super insightful interview, man. Somebody who, as an athlete, man, like I'm somebody who I like fashion, you know what I'm saying, and I want to try to get into it, and but I don't know nearly enough, you know. So I've learned so much just being on this platform with you, man. That's one of my favorite things about just having a podcast, man, is being able to draw inspiration for people like yourself, man, who are outside of basketball, man. I think for everybody who's watching this, everybody who's listening to this, man, I hope you guys were able to take something from this, man, from the fact that, just Mamadou's whole story and his journey, man, from, starting the brand and selling 5 shirts, and not quitting, doing the pop-up shop, 500 people, and, getting the Paris Fashion Week, man, and just the relationship piece, right? Having the person from Jordan come full circle now, to launching the shoe, man. I think that's super important, man, for people to understand in life, man. That number one, you can't ever quit when it comes to this thing called life, man, when you're building something, man. A lot of times you got to stay at it, man. And even when you don't think people are watching, people are watching.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? They're watching you, man. That's something that I took from this 100%, man. And also, man, just like I said, how important relationships are, man, where it comes to just even Shay or in the kid wearing them shoes in MSG, right? Like, those are all relationships that have formed, that have helped you get to this place today, man. So I just want to say thank you to you, man, number one, for coming on and talking to us, man, and sharing your story with us. And also, man, like I said, man, I definitely want to give you your flowers too as well, bro, because, I don't take it lightly, man, to be able to see African-American people or African people or Black people, however you want to be defined, just in this space, man, that are doing great things, moving and shaking, man. Like I said, you do great work, man. And like I said, it's definitely been an honor to have you on this platform, man. And to be able to say, man, that we were one of the first people to get you on the pod, because I already know 5 to 10 years later, you feel me, you're going to be on some crazy stuff. Yeah, bro, tap in. We had bro in the joint 5 years ago, man. You got to just go back and
then 5 years later, we'll run it back again with new stories.
Big facts, man.
Bro, you just can't like, bro, I'm telling you, like in 5 years from now, bro, you just can't like DM Virgil and be like, yo, hop on the pod, like type vibe, bro. But no, I definitely appreciate it, man, because that art is definitely like intimate. Like, I don't think people always understand, like, sometimes it's a little like harder for artists to sort of like push that out into the world, especially like it's so intimate to you and it means so much and it's telling so much of your story, man. So I really just appreciate what you're doing in the space, man. So it's big, for real.
I appreciate you guys even having me on. I'm sorry it took so long, but like, scheduling and all that stuff while you're really working is tough. Perfect timing, yo. No, I appreciate you.
Like I said, no doubt, man. Like I said, man, it's no problem at all. Like I said, when you're doing great things, man, sometimes you gotta knock that stuff out first, man. So definitely want to give you your flowers. And like I said, man, we're gonna run this back for sure. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Part 2, man. So make sure y'all all stay tuned. Make sure you guys are following Mamadou. Make sure you guys are following Sitbon on all platforms. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to just plug your social platforms, websites, so everybody can kind of tap in if they're not following you already.
Yes, sir. So the Instagram for Sitbon is CESTBON, and then personal is ITS Mamadou, and then the website is sitbon.online. So,
sure. So make sure y'all go ahead and tap in, man. You know what I'm saying? Get your merch. You feel me? I'm gonna definitely be copying my merch for sure. And like I said, man, this has been a great episode, great conversation. This has been another episode of the What's in Your Bag podcast presented by Bet Online. Again, make sure you guys are liking this podcast, subscribing to this podcast, give us a 5-star rating. If you sat through this whole interview, haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that now. You know what I'm saying? We're giving a lot of free game, free gems. So, go ahead and show us some love, guys. But this is going to be Pull Up Tay on the outro. Until next time, folks. Peace.
Sure. Bye.
Suave. I've been in my bag for a while, I'm invincible. Story of a young boss, grinding shit get critical. Calling on my bros one time, cause you special. I had some hoop dreams of right rounds for my mentor. Every target that I shoot is on point like a pencil. Different route, changed relationships, I'm so sorry. Came up from the trenches and I made it, I say hardly. Now